The evening sky had started to turn golden when Lena left her office. It had been a long day, filled with calls, reports, and deadlines. All she wanted now was to reach home, take a shower, and rest. Her little blue car was old but reliable, and she trusted it to get her home like always. She rolled down the window and let the cool wind touch her face as the sun slowly dipped behind the hills. The highway stretched ahead, mostly empty except for a few trucks passing now and then. It was peaceful, too peaceful maybe. The kind of quiet that makes you notice every sound your car makes. A soft rattle, a faint hum. Then suddenly a strange noise came from under the hood. At first Lena thought it was nothing serious, maybe just the engine heating up. But within minutes the noise grew louder, followed by a sudden jerk. The steering felt heavy. The car slowed down even though her foot pressed the gas pedal. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked around. No nearby town, no lights, just an endless road and trees on both sides. She quickly turned on the hazard lights and pulled over to the side. The car stopped completely, and a silence fell over the road again. She took a deep breath, trying not to panic. Okay, it's fine. Maybe it just overheated, she whispered to herself. Lena got out of the car, hoping she could see something obvious. She opened the hood, but steam hissed out and she quickly stepped back. She didn't know much about cars, but even she could tell something was wrong. She wiped the sweat from her forehead and pulled out her phone to call for help. That's when she noticed the battery icon blinking red. Only 2% left. She groaned softly. Of course. Just perfect timing, she muttered. She tried calling roadside assistance, but the call dropped halfway through. The phone died right after. Now she was completely alone on the road, her car broken down and no one nearby. She leaned against the door, looking around nervously. The wind picked up, rustling through the trees. For the first time that day, she felt small and helpless. A few minutes passed. Then she heard something, distant at first, like thunder. The sound grew louder, deeper. It was the rumble of motorcycle engines. She turned her head and saw a group of 5 bikers approaching fast. Their headlights flashed against the fading light, and the sound of their engines filled the empty road. Lena's heart started racing. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or worried. They slowed down as they reached her car. The one in front, wearing a black jacket with patches, took off his helmet. Hey there, miss. Need some help? His tone wasn't gentle, it had a teasing edge. The others laughed quietly behind him. Lena tried to sound calm. My car broke down. I just need to call for help, but my phone's dead. The man grinned. Well, that's unlucky. You're all alone out here, huh? She nodded, hoping they'd just offer a phone and move on. But they didn't. One of them whistled softly, circling his bike around her car. You sure you don't need more than a call? He joked. The others laughed again. It wasn't friendly laughter. It was mocking. Lena's chest tightened. She stepped back, trying to keep distance between her and them. I just need to borrow a phone, please. The leader shrugged. Maybe, but you gotta ask nicely. His voice carried a tone she didn't like, half joke, half threat. One of the bikers revved his engine loudly, making her flinch. The sound echoed down the highway. Lena glanced at the road, hoping another car would appear, but there was nothing. Just the orange sky fading into darkness. At that moment, across the road, a man sitting in a diner noticed the commotion. He was sitting by the window, quietly sipping coffee, dressed in jeans, boots, and a cap pulled low. He'd been there for almost an hour, enjoying a calm evening after a long day of work. When he saw the group surrounding the stranded woman, his expression changed. He set his cup down slowly and stood up. Back outside, Lena's fear was growing. One biker got off his bike and walked closer. Relax, we're just trying to help, he said with a grin that didn't match his words. Pop the hood. Maybe we can fix it. It's fine, Lena said firmly. I'll wait for the tow truck. The tow truck? Out here? Another man said, laughing loudly. You'll be waiting all night. The man from the diner stepped outside, watching from across the road. He didn't move right away. He observed carefully, calm, focused, like someone who'd seen trouble before. When the biker's laughter turned louder and Lena stepped back again, he started walking slowly across the road. The sound of his boots against the asphalt was steady. The bikers didn't notice him yet. He walked with quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. As he got closer, Lena caught sight of him out of the corner of her eye. Relief washed over her, finally someone else. The lead biker noticed her gaze and turned around. His eyes narrowed when he saw the man walking toward them. You lost, old man? he called out, trying to sound bold. The man didn't answer right away. He stopped a few steps away, his voice calm but firm. Is there a problem here? Lena shook her head quickly. No, I'm fine, she said softly. But her voice trembled. The biker laughed. Doesn't look like it. We were just helping her. The man looked from her to them. His eyes were sharp, steady. It didn't sound like help from over there. The bikers exchanged glances, a little surprised at his tone. The leader smirked. And who are you supposed to be? Some kind of hero. The man gave a faint smile. No, just someone who doesn't like bullies. The name Chuck Norris wasn't said yet. None of them realized who he was. To them, he was just some stranger stepping into their business. To Lena, he was hope in the middle of fear. The air grew tense. The bikers didn't know what to do next. Laugh it off or take offense. The leader took a slow step forward, testing him. Why don't you keep walking, old man? We don't need an audience, but the man didn't move. He looked straight at him and said calmly, Then you should probably move on. Lena stood frozen. Something about the stranger's calm voice gave her courage. The bikers didn't seem so big anymore. The one closest to her stepped back toward his bike, clearly unsure now. The leader, though, wasn't ready to back down. You really think you can tell us what to do? He said, his tone rising. The stranger didn't blink. I don't think. I know. That single line made the others exchange uneasy looks. Something about him felt different, not aggressive, but steady, unshakable. His eyes never left the man in front of him. The leader finally scoffed, shaking his head. Come on, guys. Let's not waste time with this guy. He swung his leg over his bike, pretending to laugh it off, but deep down he knew something felt off. The calmness in the stranger's eyes wasn't normal. It was the kind that comes from experience. One by one, the other bikers followed. Their engines roared again, breaking the silence. Within seconds, they sped off into the distance, leaving Lena standing beside her car, her heart still pounding. When the noise faded, the man turned to her. You okay? He asked gently. Lena nodded, tears of relief forming in her eyes. Yes, thank you. I thought. She stopped, too overwhelmed to finish. He smiled kindly. It's all right. You're safe now. He glanced at her car, then at the open hood. Looks like your battery connection came loose. Happens more than you'd think. You know about cars? She asked, still shaky. A little, he said with a shrug. He reached in, adjusted a few wires, and closed the hood. Try it now. Lena sat inside, turned the key, and the engine started right up. She looked at him in disbelief. How did you... Just a lucky guess, he said, smiling faintly. Before she could ask more, he nodded toward the diner across the road. You should rest for a bit. There's good coffee there. She smiled nervously, still processing everything. I will, thank you. I didn't even get your name, he smiled again, this time wider. You don't need it. As he walked back across the road, Lena watched him go. Something about his walk, his calm strength, it felt familiar, almost like she'd seen him somewhere before. But she couldn't place it. Later that night, as she sat in the diner drinking coffee, the cashier leaned over and whispered, You know who that was, right? Lena frowned. Who? The cashier grinned. That was Chuck Norris. Lena sat in the diner, still holding her cup of coffee, but her hands were shaking slightly. The events of the last 30 minutes replayed in her mind again and again. The way those bikers had surrounded her. The way that quiet man had stepped in without hesitation. The calmness in his voice, the steadiness in his eyes. She could still feel it. The cashier who told her it was Chuck Norris wasn't joking. She had even shown Lena a photo hanging on the diner's wall. There he was, smiling with the owner in the same cap he wore tonight. It really was him. Lena didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Of all the people who could have stopped that night, it had to be someone like him. She had seen him on TV years ago, tough, fearless, but always calm. And now she had seen that same strength in real life. She looked out the window again. The road was dark now, lit only by passing headlights. The chair where he had sat earlier was empty. It felt strange, like a storm had passed and now everything was too quiet. The diner owner came by with a refill. Rough night, huh? He said kindly. Lena smiled faintly. You could say that. He nodded, wiping the counter. That man's been stopping here for years. Never says much, just drinks coffee, pays cash, and leaves. But he's got a good heart. Helps people without making a show out of it. She nodded. I can see that. After finishing her coffee, she thanked the owner and stepped outside. Her car engine started easily now thanks to him. Before driving off, she glanced at the diner one last time. Somewhere inside, she felt thankful, not just for being safe, but for seeing that kind of quiet goodness still existed in the world. She drove home slowly, her hands gripping the steering wheel. Every time she thought of what could have happened, a chill ran through her. But then she remembered that calm voice asking, "Are you okay?" And somehow she felt safe again. The next morning, Lena woke up to dozens of missed calls and messages. Her best friend had sent her a link with the caption, "Is this you?" She opened it and froze. It was a short video, grainy but clear enough. Someone from the diner had recorded part of what happened. It showed the bikers around her car, then Chuck Norris walking toward them. The sound wasn't clear, but his calm voice could be heard. The clip ended just as the bikers backed off and drove away. The caption on the video said, "Chuck Norris defends a woman on highway and still a legend." Within hours, the video had millions of views. Comments flooded in. People praising his calmness, others shocked it was real. Lena stared at the screen, feeling a mix of emotions. She didn't post it, didn't ask for attention, but now the whole world knew. Reporters were already sharing it. Her phone buzzed nonstop. By evening, several news channels had picked it up. One headline read, "Real-life hero, Chuck Norris steps in to protect stranded woman." Another said, "Still the same man off screen." Lena didn't know how to feel. She didn't want fame, just peace. But she couldn't deny that the story had touched people. She read the comments. Messages from women saying they felt safer knowing men like him still existed, and from men saying it inspired them to be more protective and respectful. Later that night, she sat alone on her couch watching one of the interviews. A reporter asked Chuck about the video. He just smiled politely and said, "There's nothing heroic about helping someone who needs it. It's just what we're supposed to do." Then he ended the conversation and walked away. Lena smiled softly. He hadn't changed at all. Still humble, still quiet. Meanwhile, somewhere across the city, the same group of bikers sat in a small workshop. The leader stared at his phone, watching the same video. The others looked uncomfortable. None of them spoke for a long time. Finally, one said, "Man, we messed up." The leader sighed. "Yeah, big time." They weren't proud of what had happened. Seeing it online made them realize how bad it looked, not just to others but to themselves. They hadn't meant real harm, but they had scared a woman for no reason, and now the world saw them as bullies. The youngest of them, barely in his 20s, said quietly, "Maybe we should say something." Like an apology. The leader looked at him, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe it's time." The next day, Lena's phone buzzed again, this time with a different kind of notification. A public post from a biker club's official page appeared online.
It said, "To the woman we disrespected on the highway, we're sorry."
That moment taught us more than we expected. We acted foolishly, and we're thankful someone stepped in before it went too far. We're taking this as a lesson to show respect on and off the road. Ride safe. Lena read the message twice. She didn't expect it. She didn't even think they would care. But somehow it felt genuine. People online praised them for admitting their mistake. The same story that began with fear now turned into something positive. Later that week, Lena returned to the same diner. The owner smiled when he saw her walk in. "You're kind of famous now," he joked. She laughed lightly. "I didn't mean to be." "I know," he said. Neither did he. She looked at the chair by the window where Chuck had sat. It was empty again. "Has he been back?" she asked. The owner shook his head. "He comes and goes. Doesn't tell anyone when. Just appears like clockwork when you least expect it." Lena smiled. "That sounds like him." She ordered coffee again and sat by the same window watching the highway. The traffic moved steady and calm. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, and just ordinary people going home. And somehow that simple view brought peace to her heart. That night, as she drove home, her phone buzzed with another notification. It was a message request from an unknown number. The message said, "Glad you're safe. Keep that car tuned up next time. Cien." Lena's eyes widened. She read it again just to be sure. There was no profile picture, no signature beyond those two letters. But she knew exactly who it was. She smiled and replied, "Thank you. I will." He didn't answer back, and she didn't expect him to. That was just his way. do the right thing, then quietly move on. Days turned into weeks, and the story began to fade from the headlines. But people still shared the clip now and then, calling it a reminder that kindness and courage don't need to shout to be real. Meanwhile, the biker group followed through on their apology. They started a small campaign online called Respect the Road. They began visiting schools and community centers, sharing their story, reminding others to help instead of mock, to protect instead of scare. It was strange how one single moment, one act of quiet strength, had changed so many lives. For Lena, life slowly went back to normal. She still worked at the same office, drove the same car, drank coffee from the same diner, but something inside her had shifted. She wasn't as afraid of the world anymore. She had seen what real courage looked like. Not the loud kind, but the steady kind that steps forward when everyone else looks away. One Friday evening, as she was about to leave work, her boss asked her to stay for a meeting. It ran late, and by the time she hit the road, the sky was dark again. For a moment, she hesitated before taking that same highway, but then she smiled to herself. As she drove past the diner, she glanced at the window and thought she saw a familiar figure sitting inside, cap pulled low, coffee in hand, looking out at the road. She couldn't be sure, but it made her smile anyway. She didn't stop this time. She just kept driving, feeling strangely safe knowing that somewhere out there, someone like him still watched over people in quiet ways. The road stretched ahead, peaceful under the silver glow of moonlight. The world felt calmer, kinder, at least for tonight. A few weeks passed and life slowly found its rhythm again for Lena. But something about that night stayed with her. Every time she passed that same diner, she couldn't help but look toward the window where Chuck Norris had once sat. Sometimes the chair was empty, sometimes occupied by strangers. Still, she always looked, half hoping to see that calm, familiar figure again. The viral video had cooled down by now, but people still remembered the story. Every now and then she'd overhear someone mention it, at the grocery store, at work, even at the gas station. That was a real man, one woman had said, shaking her head in admiration. Didn't say much, just stepped up when it mattered. Lena never corrected anyone or told them she was the woman in the story. It wasn't about fame or attention for her. It was about gratitude, the kind that stays quiet but deep inside the heart. One Saturday morning, as she was cleaning her apartment, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to see a young man standing there, holding a small box. He looked nervous. "Hi," he said. "Are you Lena?" "Yes," she replied cautiously. He smiled awkwardly. "I'm from the biker club, the one that, from the highway." Her expression softened. "Oh," she said. "Come in." He shook his head. No, I won't take much of your time. We're visiting people to make things right. The guys wanted me to bring this." He handed her the box. Inside there was a small metal badge shaped like a wheel, engraved with the words, "Respect the Road." He continued, "We've been doing charity rides. We raise money for stranded drivers, single moms, stuff like that. It started because of that night. You inspired it, actually. Or maybe he did. Probably both." Lena smiled gently. "That's a good thing." "I'm glad something good came from it." The man nodded. "We were idiots that night. We thought we were being funny. But when we saw ourselves online, it didn't look funny anymore." She didn't interrupt. She could see he meant every word. "We changed," he said quietly. "That guy, Chuck, he didn't yell. He didn't even get angry. He just looked at us. That kind of calm. It gets to you. Made us rethink what strength really means." Lena nodded. "I understand. And I believe people can change." "You're proving that." He looked relieved. "Thanks for saying that." He hesitated, then smiled. "You know, he still visits that diner. Helped one of our guys last week when his bike chain broke. Didn't even tell him who he was until later." Lena laughed softly. "That sounds exactly like him." After the man left, she held the small badge in her hands for a long moment. It wasn't fancy, but it meant something. A piece of metal, born from a moment of fear, now symbolizing respect and redemption. That evening, she decided to drive to the diner again. Not to look for him, at least that's what she told herself, but just to clear her head. The sky was pink and gold as the sun began to set, and the open road felt peaceful again. When she pulled into the diner's parking lot, she noticed a few motorcycles lined up outside. Her heart skipped a beat. Maybe, just maybe, he was there. Inside, the place was busy. Truckers, travelers, families, everyone seemed to be chatting and laughing. She ordered her usual coffee and sat by the window. After a few minutes, she noticed a man at the counter. Jeans, boots, same cap, same quiet posture. He was talking to the owner in low tones. It was him. She hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to approach. What would she even say? Thank you again? He had already done so much. But something in her heart told her she had to at least speak to him one more time. She walked up slowly. Excuse me, she said softly. He turned and that same calm smile appeared on his face. I thought I might see you again, he said. You did? He nodded. You looked like someone who doesn't let lessons go to waste. She smiled shyly. I guess not. I just wanted to thank you again. Not just for that night, but for what came after. Those bikers changed. The story helped people. You started something. He shook his head. No, you did. I just reminded them of what they already knew. Lena looked down, smiling. You always have the perfect thing to say, don't you? He chuckled quietly. Not really. I just keep things simple. They sat down together, and for the first time she got to know him beyond the legend. He told her about growing up in a small town, about learning discipline from his parents, about the importance of staying humble no matter how famous life makes you. I've met a lot of strong people, he said, but real strength isn't about what you can do. It's about what you choose not to do. She listened closely, admiring the way he spoke, slow, thoughtful, never trying to impress. After a while, a group of travelers came in. One of them recognized him and asked for a picture. He smiled politely, took the photo, and then quickly returned to his coffee. He didn't seek attention. It just seemed to find him wherever he went. When Lena got up to leave, she thanked him again. You might not remember everyone you helped, she said, but I'll never forget you. He smiled. That's kind of you. But the goal isn't to be remembered, Mas, it's to pass it on. Pass what on? She asked. Respect, he said simply. It goes farther than strength ever will. That night, Lena drove home with a calm heart. She felt lighter, as if she had finally closed a chapter. But the story wasn't over yet. A few days later, the diner owner called her. Hey, you might want to come by, he said. Something interesting happened. When she arrived, he handed her a folded piece of paper. He left this for you. Her hands trembled a little as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note in neat, bold letters. You handled yourself with courage that night. Fear doesn't make you weak, but it reminds you you're human. Keep being kind and keep standing tall. Seishin. There was also a simple napkin tucked inside with a small doodle of a coffee cup and the words, Next one's on me. Lena laughed softly, tears forming in her eyes. She looked up at the owner. Where did he go? He shrugged. Didn't say. Just paid his bill, smiled, and left. Like always. She tucked the note carefully into her wallet. Somehow she knew she'd never see him again, at least not by chance. But she didn't need to. His words, his actions, and his quiet strength were already a part of her life. Over the next few months, Lena joined the biker group's charity rides as a volunteer. They helped fix cars on the roadside, distributed water to travelers, and even set up small donation booths for people stranded on highways. Every time they gathered before a ride, someone would always mention that night, how it had started with fear and ended with a lesson in respect. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the group prepared for another charity event, the leader said, We owe all this to two people. One who reminded us what courage looks like, and one who showed us what forgiveness means. Everyone clapped and Lena smiled quietly. She didn't like attention, but she appreciated the acknowledgement. After the ride, as she was locking her car, she noticed something stuck under her windshield wiper. A napkin, with a small doodle of a thumbs up and two simple words, Keep going. She looked around, but no one was there. Just the hum of the road and the sound of bikes leaving in the distance. She smiled. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe not. Either way, it made her feel safe again. Like no matter where she went, there was someone out there. Someone who believed in doing good quietly, without needing thanks or cameras. And that, she realized, was what made him different. Some people talk about kindness. Others practice it. But a few, like Chuck Norris, live it every single day without saying a word. Months had passed since that unforgettable night on the highway, but for Lena, It still felt fresh in her memory. Sometimes when she closed her eyes, she could still hear the roar of motorcycles, the fear in her chest, and then that calm voice breaking through the noise, steady and strong. Her life had changed since then, and not in fame or fortune, but in perspective. She looked at people differently now. Every stranger on the road could be someone's protector, someone's lesson, or someone in need. One quiet afternoon, she was sitting at her office desk when an email popped up. The subject line read, "Highway Heroes Charity Event Invitation." Curious, she opened it. The biker group she'd once feared was now organizing a large event to raise funds for roadside assistance programs. They wanted her to attend as a guest speaker. The message said, "You inspired the first step. We'd be honored if you came." Lena smiled as she read it. She had never spoken in front of a crowd before, but this felt right. This wasn't about her. It was about showing what change looks like when people decide to do better. The event was set for the following weekend, held at an open field near the same diner where everything had started. The irony wasn't lost on her. Life had a way of circling back to the same places, only this time, with a different purpose. When she arrived that morning, rows of motorcycles lined the field, gleaming in the sunlight. Families, travelers, and volunteers gathered around food stalls and small tents. A big banner fluttered in the wind. "Respect the road. Be the help someone needs." Lena felt a lump in her throat as she walked around. The same bikers who had once scared her now smiled warmly, handing out water bottles and helping set up chairs. They recognized her immediately. "Hey, you made it," the leader said with a grin. "We're glad you're here." "I wouldn't miss it," she replied. "This is amazing," he nodded proudly. "We just wanted to turn that night into something good. You know, show people it's never too late to fix your story." Lena smiled. "You already did." As the event began, one of the bikers took the microphone to welcome everyone. He spoke about respect, kindness, and how one small moment could change people's hearts. Then he invited Lena to speak. Her heart pounded as she stepped up. The crowd looked friendly, but public speaking had never been her thing. Still, she took a deep breath and began. "Most of you don't know me," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I was just someone trying to get home one evening when my car broke down. That night could have gone very differently. But something happened that I'll never forget. Someone stepped in, quietly, calmly, and reminded us all what respect really means." The audience listened closely. Some nodded, some smiled. She continued, "I used to think courage was about being fearless, but it's not. It's about being kind even when you don't have to be. It's about standing up when you see someone being treated wrong, even if it's not your business." That night changed my view of people. And seeing all of you here today proves that kindness spreads further than fear ever could. Applause filled the air. Lena smiled, her eyes glistening. After her speech, several people came up to thank her. A mother with 2 kids said softly, "My daughter watched your story online. She said it made her believe in good people again." Lena hugged her gently. "That's all that matters," she said. As the day went on, the field buzzed with laughter, music, and energy. The biker group raffled off helmets and offered free roadside safety lessons. Reporters came to cover the story. But this time, it wasn't about a viral video or a famous face. It was about community, redemption, and the quiet heroes of everyday life. In the middle of the afternoon, Lena went to grab a drink near the diner. When she stepped inside, the air felt familiar, warm, filled with chatter and the smell of fresh coffee. She looked toward the window, almost out of habit, and there he was, sitting at the same spot in the same cap, sipping coffee like always. Her heart leapt. She smiled as she walked over. "I should have guessed you'd be here," she said. He looked up, smiling. "I figured I'd see what you made out of all this." "You inspired it," she replied. He shook his head. "I just started the spark. You kept it burning." They sat quietly for a moment, watching the people outside laughing and working together. "You see that?" he said, nodding toward the window. "That's what it's about. Not the fame, not the stories, just people choosing to be decent to each other." Lena nodded. "It's strange, isn't it? One bad night led to all this good." He smiled faintly. "That's how life works sometimes. The worst nights often bring out the best lessons." She looked at him curiously. "Do you ever get tired of being recognized everywhere?" He chuckled softly. Fame comes and goes. Respect lasts longer. I'd rather be remembered for doing the right thing than for being on screen. His words stayed with her. They carried weight, not like a quote from a movie, but like something lived and learned over time. As they talked, the diner owner brought over 2 cups of coffee. "On the house," he said, "for the 2 people who reminded us all that kindness still wins." They both thanked him. Outside, the event continued with cheers and laughter. Children ran around with balloons, bikers posed for pictures with families, and volunteers handed out food. It was a day no one would forget. Before leaving, Chuck stood up and said, "Keep doing what you're doing, Lena. You don't need me around anymore." She smiled, though a part of her didn't want him to go. "But it's nice knowing you're out there somewhere," she said. He grinned. "Maybe, but the world's full of people like you now. That's good enough." She watched him walk out of the diner and into the sunlight, his silhouette framed against the open road. Just like that first night, he didn't look back. Later that evening, when the event wrapped up, the biker leader handed Lena a framed picture. It was a still from the viral video. Chuck standing calmly beside her car, the sunset behind them. Beneath it, a quote was written, "Real power is quiet." Lena smiled through tears. "This means a lot," she said softly. "It means a lot to us too," he replied. Because that moment changed everything. As the sun dipped low and people began to leave, Lena stayed behind for a while, watching the field empty slowly. The laughter faded, replaced by the soft sound of engines and the whisper of wind across the grass. She walked to her car and looked once more toward the highway. The same road that had once been a place of fear now felt like a place of hope. She realized then that life often brings people together for reasons that don't make sense at first. But every meeting, every test has a purpose. When she started her car, something on the passenger seat caught her eye. It was a napkin, folded neatly. Her heart skipped a beat. She opened it and read the familiar handwriting. "You did good today. Keep going." "Cien," she laughed softly, shaking her head. "He never changes," she whispered. Driving home, the world outside looked softer, brighter somehow. She thought about all the lives connected by that one night. Hers, the bikers, even the strangers who watched the video and found hope in it. Kindness, she realized, doesn't just stop at one act. It travels, passing quietly from person to person, leaving a mark long after the moment is gone. And somewhere out there, on another road, Chuck Norris was probably sitting at another small diner, sipping coffee, ready to step in if someone needed a reminder that goodness still exists. A few weeks after the charity event, life started to feel calm again. The noise of attention had faded, but something inside Lena had changed forever. She no longer saw the world through fear or hesitation. She saw it through quiet courage. One Saturday morning, she woke up early and decided to take a long drive out of the city. It wasn't about going anywhere special. She just wanted to feel the open road again. The air was fresh, the sky was wide, and the sunlight fell gently across the horizon. As she drove, she found herself thinking about all that had happened. The night her car broke down, the bikers, the man who appeared out of nowhere, and the way everything turned around. It still amazed her how one moment could lead to such deep change. She stopped at a gas station on the edge of town and grabbed a coffee. While she was standing outside, she noticed an old man trying to start his truck. The engine sputtered and died each time. People walked past him, busy with their day. For a moment, she just watched. Then she smiled to herself. She walked over and asked gently, "Need a little help?" The old man looked up, a bit surprised, then nodded with a grateful smile. "If you don't mind, miss. Seems this old thing's had enough." Lena rolled up her sleeves. "Let's see what we can do." They worked together for a while. She remembered a few tricks Chuck had shown her that night, small things about engines and patience. It wasn't long before the truck roared back to life. The old man chuckled, eyes full of warmth. "You've got a gift, young lady. Not just for engines, but for helping." Lena smiled. "Someone once taught me that when you can help, you should." He nodded thoughtfully. "That's how the world keeps turning right." As he drove away, she stood there, sipping her coffee, feeling the soft wind on her face. It was such a simple thing, but her heart felt full. It wasn't about big moments anymore. It was about small ones that made the day better for someone else. When she got back in her car, She noticed a little card tucked under the windshield wiper. It looked old, like it had been through miles of travel. Curious, she opened it. It was a handwritten note. Keep passing it forward. The world needs more people like you. Cian, her eyes widened. She looked around the parking lot, scanning the cars and faces, but he was nowhere to be seen. Just the same silence, the same open road. She laughed quietly, shaking her head. He's everywhere and nowhere, she said under her breath. Back on the road, she couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the message that every person could be the reason someone else smiled again. As the months went by, Lena started volunteering at the same highway safety group the bikers had started. They held workshops for drivers, raised funds for roadside kits, and even trained young people on how to help in emergencies. She became one of the main speakers, sharing her story not as a victim, but as a witness to change. Every time she spoke, she noticed something. People leaned in, not because the story had a celebrity in it, but because it was real. She often ended her talks with the same line. Heroes don't always wear uniforms or capes. Sometimes they wear quiet smiles and show up when it matters. One afternoon, after finishing a long session with a group of students, Lena stepped outside to find the sun low in the sky. Across the parking lot, a man in a familiar cap stood beside a motorcycle. Her heart skipped. She walked over slowly. "You have a habit of showing up just when I think of you," she said. Chuck grinned. "You talk about me too much in those speeches," he teased lightly. "Figured I'd better make sure you're getting the story right." Lena laughed. "I think I've learned to tell it pretty well." He looked proud, the kind of quiet pride that doesn't need words. "You've done more with that story than I ever could," he said. "You turned it into something that keeps growing." She looked around the field full of volunteers packing up, kids laughing and people waving goodbye. "They did that," she said softly. "All of them." "I just told the story," Chuck nodded. "That's how change starts. One story at a time." They stood there watching the sunset for a while, not needing to say much. The orange light stretched across the sky, and the hum of motorcycles echoed softly in the distance. Then Chuck said quietly, "You know, the real reason I stopped that night wasn't because I saw trouble. It was because I saw someone who didn't give up. You stayed calm, you didn't run. That kind of strength stands out." Lena looked at him surprised. "I didn't feel strong at all." "That's usually when we are," he said simply. The moment hung between them, peaceful, deep. After a pause, Lena smiled. "You're not planning on disappearing again, are you?" He chuckled. "That's kind of my thing, but I'll always be around somewhere, maybe not where you expect." Before leaving, he reached into his jacket and handed her something small, a simple keychain with a tiny silver star. "What's this?" she asked. "Just a reminder," he said, "that even on quiet roads, someone's watching out for you. And now maybe you're watching out for someone else too." She turned it over in her hand, touched by the gesture. "Thank you," she said softly. He gave her that familiar half smile and said, "Keep your light steady, Lena. The world needs steady lights." Then, with that calm grace only he had, he put on his helmet, started his motorcycle, and rode away, down the same kind of road where they'd first met. Lena stood there for a long time, watching until the sound faded. She felt no sadness this time, only peace. A few months later, a video clip from one of her charity talks went viral online. It wasn't dramatic, just her speaking quietly to a small group about kindness, about how one act can start a chain reaction. The caption read, "She was once saved on the road. Now she saves others." People from around the world began writing to her, sharing their own stories, their own moments of help and hope. Some said they had stopped to help strangers on highways. Some said they apologized to people they had wronged, and some said they simply smiled at people more. Each message was a ripple, proof that goodness could spread farther than anyone expected. One evening, as Lena was going through those messages, she noticed one that stood out. It had no name, just a short line. "Keep the road kind. Proud of you. CN." She smiled and whispered, "You really don't rest, do you?" Outside her window, the city lights twinkled like stars scattered across the ground. She thought of all the roads winding through the world, each one carrying stories of people meeting, helping, learning, changing. And she realized something simple but powerful. It wasn't just about one man who stepped in or one woman who found courage. It was about everyone who decided to make the next right choice. Years later, when people asked Lena what really happened that night, she would always say the same thing. It wasn't a rescue story. It was a reminder that respect, kindness, and courage still live among us, sometimes in the quietest hearts, and somewhere out there. On another long stretch of road, Chuck Norris was probably doing what he did best, living simply, helping quietly, and watching as the goodness he inspired continued to move, one person at a time. The world didn't need another hero in the spotlight. It just needed more hearts that remembered what real strength looked like. Steady, patient, and kind. And so the story didn't really end. It simply kept traveling, from one road to another, from one act of kindness to the next.